Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here we translate testimonies from people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences. Today we are going to learn about the story of Ezequiel Valdivia. He says he died, met an angel, and received a warning about the future. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Leave a comment with your name and city. Now let's listen to Ezequiel's testimony. Hello, my name is Ezequiel Valdivia. I'm here to share with you a story that completely changed my life. It's a story about loss, transformation, and hope. It all started a few years ago, but the events I'm about to tell you about seem as vivid as if they happened yesterday. First of all, let me tell you a little about who I am. I am an only child, born and raised in a modest but loving family. My father, Don Jaime Valdivia, was my hero, my role model. He taught me everything about integrity, hard work, and the importance of family. My mother unfortunately passed away when I was very young, so it was my father who raised me alone. I have always been a man dedicated to work, focused on building a solid and successful career. I spent years climbing the corporate ladder, often at the expense of my well-being and my relationships. I thought that professional success was the key to a fulfilling life. But the events I'm going to share with you showed me how wrong I was. Today I am a different man. I'm married to Sofia Martinez, the most incredible woman I've ever met, and we have a wonderful son. We live in a rented apartment, nothing luxurious, but full of love and joy. I learned to value the simple things in life, moments with my family, health, and peace of mind. It's early August 2024, and I feel like I'm on the cusp of something great. I don't know exactly what will happen, but I have a strong feeling that this month will bring significant changes, not just for me, but for all of humanity. It's a strange feeling, a mix of anxiety and hope that accompanies me every day. The story I'm going to tell begins with my father's illness and ends with an experience that challenged everything I believed about life and death. It is a journey of self-discovery, connection with the beyond, and a new understanding of what really matters in this life. I hope that by sharing my story, I can touch your hearts and maybe even inspire a new perspective on life. So let's start from the beginning. Prepare yourselves for a journey that goes beyond the limits of our physical world, a journey that has taken me to the doors of the afterlife and back again, forever changing the way I view life, death, and everything in between. It all started when my father was diagnosed with a terminal illness. It was a devastating blow for both of us. My father, always so strong and full of life, suddenly seemed fragile and vulnerable. Seeing the man I always considered invincible wasting away day after day in the hospital was one of the most painful experiences of my life. I visited my father almost every day. I tried to keep a calm, positive expression, forcing smiles and talking about happy things even when my heart was breaking. I wanted to give him some hope, some comfort in his final moments. But the truth is, I was falling apart inside. The weeks dragged on, and each day seemed more difficult than the last. The antiseptic smell of the hospital, the constant sound of the machines, the compassionate looks of the medical staff, all of this was etched into my memory in a way I will never forget. I remember one night in particular. I was sitting next to my father's bed holding his hand. He was asleep, his breathing ragged and labored. I looked at his face marked by time and illness and allowed myself to cry silently. At that moment, I felt the full weight of the situation, the full injustice of the life that was taking my father from me. It was that night that my father briefly woke up and looked at me with a clarity I hadn't seen in weeks. He shook my hand weakly and said, "Ezequiel, my son, do not be afraid. Death is just a door to another place. I will always be with you." Those words stuck in my mind, even though at the time I didn't fully understand what they meant. The next few days were a blur of tests, doctor's appointments, and long hours of vigil at my father's bedside. I felt helpless, unable to do anything to alleviate his suffering. All I could do was be there, offer comfort and love in his final moments. And then, one night in August, my father finally left. I was by his side, holding his hand, when he took his last breath. It was a moment of deep sadness, but also of strange peace. His suffering was over, but mine was just beginning. In the days that followed, I found myself having to deal with all the practicalities of death. Organize the funeral, deal with paperwork, inform friends and family. Each task felt like an insurmountable mountain, but somehow I managed to move forward, one step at a time. The funeral was a blur of friendly faces and comforting words that I barely registered. All I could think was that my father, my hero, my safe haven, was gone forever. Or at least, that's what I thought at the time. After the funeral, I entered a period of deep mourning. The days dragged on and I felt completely lost. My father's absence was like a black hole, sucking all the joy and purpose out of my life. I buried myself in work, trying to fill the void with long hours at the office, but nothing seemed to help. It was around this time that I started having vivid dreams about my father. At first, they were confused and fragmented dreams. I saw my father at different stages of life, sometimes young and full of vigor, other times old and fragile like in his last days. But in every dream he had that loving smile I knew so well. One dream in particular stuck in my memory. In it, my dad and I were fishing together like we used to do when I was a kid. The lake was calm, the sky a brilliant blue. My father looked at me and said, "Son, life is like this lake, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, but there is always something waiting to be discovered in the depths." These dreams were both a comfort and a source of sadness. On the one hand, it was comforting to see my father again, to feel his presence, even if it was only in dreams. On the other hand, each time I woke up, the reality of loss hit me again with full force. I began to wonder if these dreams had some deeper meaning. Was my father trying to tell me something? There were times when I could almost feel his presence in the room when I woke up, as if he were there, watching over me. Meanwhile, my personal life was falling apart. My relationship with Sophia, my girlfriend at the time, was strained. I became distant, closed off in my own world of pain. Sophia tried to reach me, comfort me, but I had built a wall around myself that seemed impenetrable. It was Sophia who finally convinced me to seek help. I started going to therapy, a difficult but necessary process. Slowly, I began to process my grief, to understand that grief is a journey, not a destination. The dreams about my father continued, but they began to change. Now, instead of just reliving memories, it felt like my father was trying to guide me. In one particularly vivid dream, he led me to a shining door. "It is not time for you to cross yet," he said, "but remember this door. One day, you will understand." I didn't know it at the time, but this dream was a harbinger of things to come. The shining door would appear again in my life in a way I could never have imagined. As the months went by, I started to feel a little better. The pain of loss was still there, but it was no longer as acute. I began to rediscover small joys in life, the taste of a good meal, the pleasure of a walk outdoors, the comfort of Sophia's hug. But something had fundamentally changed within me. I was no longer the same man focused only on career and material success. My father's death had forced me to confront my own mortality, to question what really mattered in life. I didn't know it at the time, but I was preparing myself for an experience that would completely change my perspective on life, death, and everything in between. It was on an ordinary night, after a long day of work, that everything changed. I was at home, exhausted after endless hours at the office. Sophia had gone shopping, and I was alone in the apartment. I remember being in the kitchen making a sandwich when I suddenly felt an overwhelming dizziness. The world around me began to spin, colors blending into a confusing blur. I tried to hold on to the kitchen counter, but my legs gave way. The last thing I remember is the ground approaching quickly before everything went dark. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but what happened next was something that challenged everything I believed about reality. Suddenly, I found myself floating above my own body. It was an indescribable feeling. I felt light, free from any pain or discomfort. I looked down and saw my body lying motionless on the kitchen floor. At first, I was panicked. I thought he was dead. I tried to scream to call for help, but no sound came out of my mouth. Then, gradually, a feeling of calm began to wash over me. It was like I was being embraced by a soft, comforting light. I looked at myself, or rather at this ethereal version of myself, and was surprised to see that I looked different. My spiritual body, if I can call it that, emitted a soft glow. And the strangest thing of all, I had a kind of luminous tail. It was as if I were a human comet, floating in the space of my own home. Driven by a curiosity that overcame fear, I decided to explore. I discovered that I could move with just my thoughts. I floated through the apartment walls as if they didn't exist. It was an incredible feeling of freedom. I left the building and found myself hovering over the city. The night lights glowed below me, but there was something different. I could see auras around people on the street, vibrant colors that seemed to reflect their emotional states. It was as if I could feel the energy of the city itself pulsing around me. As I floated, I began to notice other entities around me. Some seemed lost, confused, wandering aimlessly. Others radiated peace and serenity. I realized I was seeing souls, some recently disembodied, others that seemed to have been there for a long time. One of these souls in particular caught my attention. It was an elderly woman, with an expression of deep sadness on her face. I felt immense compassion for her and, without knowing exactly how, I communicated with her. These were not spoken words, but a kind of transmission of thoughts and emotions. I understood that she had recently died and was confused, unable to accept her passing. Guided by an instinct I couldn't explain, I helped her find her way. I saw a bright light appear, and the woman smiled gratefully before disappearing into it. This experience left me in awe. I was witnessing, and participating in, something that went beyond any normal human understanding. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a world of possibilities and connections that I never knew existed. But that was just the beginning. What came next would completely change my understanding of life, death, and the purpose of our existence. As I floated through what appeared to be a spiritual plane, something on the horizon caught my attention. It was a brilliant light, more intense than anything I had ever seen. Driven by an irresistible curiosity, I headed towards that light. As I got closer, I began to make out shapes within that light. Gradually, an entire city revealed itself before my eyes. But it was no ordinary city. It was something beyond my wildest imagination. The buildings were made of a material that looked like crystal but gave off its own soft light. The colors were vibrant, more vivid than anything I've ever seen on Earth. There were tones I didn't even know existed, colors that seemed to sing and dance before my eyes. The streets were not made of asphalt, but of something that looked like liquid gold, flowing and moving beneath the feet of the souls who walked there. And yes, there were souls, countless of them, all radiant and happy. The most impressive thing was the atmosphere of the place. It was as if the air itself was permeated with peace and love. There was no fear, sadness, or worry, just a deep sense of well-being and harmony. I floated through the streets of this celestial city, marveling at every detail. There were gardens of indescribable beauty, with flowers that seemed to be made of pure light. Fountains gushed crystal-clear water that emitted soft music as it fell. The sky above was a deep, ethereal blue, dotted with stars that seemed close at hand. The souls that inhabited this city were equally fascinating. They didn't walk, but they seemed to float gracefully. Their shapes were human-like but translucent and luminous. Each one emitted a unique aura, a color signature that seemed to tell its story. As I walked past them, I realized I could feel their emotions and thoughts. It was a form of communication that went beyond words, a direct exchange of ideas and feelings. I felt a deep connection with every soul I encountered, as if we were all part of one big cosmic family. At one point, I came across what appeared to be a large amphitheater. Souls were gathered there, absorbing what I can only describe as pure knowledge. There was no visible speaker, but information seemed to flow directly into the minds of the souls present. It was as if all the knowledge in the universe was available to anyone who wanted to learn. I continued my exploration and arrived at a place that seemed to be some kind of healing center. Newly arrived souls were greeted with love and compassion, enveloped in a comforting light that seemed to heal emotional and spiritual wounds. Time seemed to not exist in this place. I can't tell you how much time I spent exploring this celestial city. It could have been minutes or centuries. The notion of time as we know it simply didn't apply there. Throughout this entire experience, I felt a deep peace and sense of belonging that I had never experienced before. It was as if I had finally arrived home after a long journey. Part of me wanted to stay there forever, taking in that infinite beauty and harmony. But something inside me knew my journey wasn't over. There was more to see, more to learn, and it was then that I noticed a figure approaching me, a being of light that seemed to have a specific purpose for me. This figure guided me away from the city, towards a new destination. I didn't know what awaited me, but I felt like I was about to receive even deeper revelations about the nature of existence. As we left the celestial city behind, I looked one last time at that place of indescribable beauty. I knew that the memory of that place would remain engraved in my soul forever, a glimpse of what could await us beyond this earthly life. As I walked away from the celestial city, guided by the being of light, the scenery around me began to change. The bright light dimmed, giving way to a more serene and contemplative environment. I found myself in a beautiful garden, with soft-colored flowers and soft grass that looked like it was made of green silk. In the center of this garden, sitting on a white stone bench, was an elderly man. He had a serene appearance with white hair and a weathered face, but his eyes shone with an ancient wisdom. The being of light that guided me left me there and disappeared silently. I approached the old man, feeling a mixture of curiosity and reverence. He smiled at me, a smile full of kindness and understanding. "Welcome, Ezekiel," he said, his voice soft as a summer breeze. "I've been waiting for you." I was surprised he knew my name, but somehow it seemed natural in this place. "Who are you?" I asked, sitting next to him on the bench. "I am one who, like you, has already made the journey of earthly life," and he replied. "I've been through joy and sadness, loved and lost, and finally found my way here. Now, I'm here to help souls like you better understand their journey." The old man told me that in life he had been an ordinary man. He worked hard, raised a family, faced challenges. "I died of lung cancer," he said with a wry smile. "Years of cigarettes finally caught up with me. But here I learned that every experience, even illness and death, has a purpose in our spiritual journey." We talked for a time that seemed both brief and eternal. The old man shared with me wisdom about life and death, about the purpose of existence and the nature of the universe. His words resonated deeply with me, as if they were awakening a knowledge I had always had, but had forgotten. "See, Ezekiel," he said at one point, "the life we live on earth is just a small part of our eternal journey. It is a school, a place of learning and growth. Every challenge we face, every relationship we have, every choice we make, it all shapes us and prepares us for what comes next." I thought about my father, the pain of his loss. As if reading my thoughts, the old man gently placed his hand over mine. "Your father is well, Ezekiel. He has completed his earthly journey and is now at peace. The separation you feel is temporary. In the grand scheme of things, we are all eternally connected." His words brought tears to my eyes, not of sadness, but of relief and understanding. For the first time since my father's death, I felt true peace about his departure. The old man continued, "You are here for a reason, Ezekiel. This experience is no accident. You have a purpose to fulfill, an important mission on earth. What you are seeing and learning here, you must take back with you." I was intrigued by your words. What mission? I asked. What I need to do? The old man smiled mysteriously. That, my young friend, is something you will discover for yourself in due time. But know this. The changes that will come to your life and the world are not something to fear. They are opportunities for growth and transformation. He stood up then, and I realized our time together was coming to an end. There is more for you to see, he said, pointing to a path that opened into the garden. Move forward, Ezekiel. The next step of your journey awaits. As I stood up to follow the path, the old man placed his hand on my shoulder. Remember, he said, love is the most powerful force in the universe. It is what connects us, guides us, and makes us grow. Never forget that. With those words, he disappeared, leaving me with a sense of peace and purpose. Inspired and intrigued, I began walking along the trail that stretched out before me, eager to discover what else this extraordinary journey had to reveal to me. As I followed the path that the wise old man had indicated to me, the scenery around me began to change again. The serene garden gave way to an ethereal environment where colors seemed to blend and flow as if they were alive. The ground beneath my feet, or was it my essence, felt like solid clouds, and the air was charged with a vibrant energy that I could almost touch. After what seemed like an eternity, and yet only an instant, I saw something in the distance that made my heart, or whatever it was in this spiritual form, leap. It was a door, but no ordinary door. This one was made of pure light, shining with an intensity that should have been blinding, but was somehow comforting to look at. As I got closer, I realized the door was bigger than anything I had ever seen. It seemed to extend infinitely upward and to the sides. The light emanating from it pulsed gently, as if it were alive and breathing. I stopped at the door, amazed. It was the same door I had seen in my dreams, the door my father had shown me. Now I understood what he meant when he said that one day I would understand. As I gazed at the door, I felt a presence beside me. Turning around, I saw a being of light, brighter and more majestic than any I had encountered before. Instinctively, I knew I was in the presence of an angel. Ezekiel. The angel's voice resonated in my mind, soft and powerful at the same time. You have reached the border between the worlds. Beyond this door lies what many call heaven, the realm of eternal happiness. I felt a wave of emotion go through me. Part of me desperately yearned to walk through that door, to experience the peace and joy that I knew were on the other side. But another part was hesitant, knowing it wasn't my time yet. As if reading my thoughts, the angel continued. Yes, Ezekiel, you are right. It is not yet your time to cross over. You have an important mission to fulfill on earth. What mission? I asked, echoing the question I had asked the wise old man. The angel smiled, a smile that seemed to light up the entire universe. You are a messenger, Ezekiel. What you have experienced here, what you have learned, it all has a purpose. You must return and share this wisdom with the world. I felt the weight of responsibility fall on me. But how? I asked. How can I share something so vast, so beyond normal comprehension? Through love, replied the angel. Love is the universal language that transcends all barriers. Share the love you have experienced here. Show people the interconnectedness of all things. Help them understand that there is more to existence than what our physical eyes can see. The angel then pointed to the shining door. Watch, he said. At that moment, the door partially opened, and I could glimpse what lay beyond. It was a sight that defies description in human words. I saw a realm of pure light and love where souls danced in perfect harmony. I saw joyful reunions of long-separated loved ones. I saw the fulfillment of all dreams and hopes. And there, in the middle of it all, I saw my father. He was radiant, happier and more at peace than I had ever seen him in life. He looked directly at me and smiled. A smile full of love and understanding. Tears of joy ran down my spiritual face. I wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him how much I loved him and missed him. But before he could make any movement, the door closed softly. The angel placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Your father is well, Ezekiel. He is at peace and happy. And one day when his mission is complete, you will be reunited with him again." I nodded, feeling a mixture of sadness and joy, of longing and acceptance. I knew I had seen something precious, something that would forever change the way I viewed life and death. "It's time for you to return, Ezekiel," said the angel. "Remember everything you saw and felt here. Use this knowledge to bring more light and love into the world." With those words, I felt a gentle force pulling me back. The last thing I saw was the angel's radiant smile before everything disappeared in a flash of light. Returning to consciousness was like emerging from a deep dream. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the daylight streaming in through the kitchen window. He was lying on the floor, exactly where he had fallen. My body ached, but the pain was insignificant compared to the transcendental experience I had just had. I sat up slowly, looking around the familiar kitchen with new eyes. Everything seemed both the same and completely different at the same time. The colors seemed more vivid, the sounds clearer. I could feel the energy pulsing through every object, every molecule of air. Sophia found me like this, sitting on the kitchen floor with a distant look in her eyes. She rushed in, her face pale with worry. "Ezekiel, what happened? Are you okay?" I looked at her and smiled, feeling a wave of love so intense it almost knocked me over again. "I'm fine, Sophia," he said softly. "More than fine. I've seen things, experienced things you wouldn't believe." Sophia helped me up and took me to the couch. He sat next to me, holding my hands, his eyes full of concern and curiosity. "What do you mean? What happened?" I took a deep breath, trying to find words to describe the indescribable. "I had a near-death experience, Sophia. I saw the other side. I saw things that completely changed my understanding of life, death, and everything in between." In the days and weeks that followed, I tried to process everything that had happened. I told Sophia about my journey, about the heavenly city, the wise old man, the shining door. I spoke about the love and peace I felt, about the interconnectedness of all things. At first, I know she had a hard time believing it. Who wouldn't have? But as the days went by, she started to see the changes in me. I was calmer, more centered. The fear of death that haunted me before had completely disappeared. My perspective on life has radically changed. The things that had once seemed so important, money, status, professional success, now seemed trivial compared to what I had experienced. Instead, I began to value human connections, love, compassion more. I began meditating regularly, trying to recapture that sense of peace and unity I had experienced on the other side. Sometimes during these meditations, I would catch fleeting glimpses of that spiritual realm, as if a window had briefly opened into the beyond. My relationship with Sophia has blossomed in ways I never imagined possible. The love I felt on the spiritual plane taught me to love in a deeper and more unconditional way. I shared with her everything I learned about the power of love and the interconnectedness of all souls. At work, my colleagues noticed the change. I was more patient, more compassionate. I began to see each person as a soul on a journey, each with their own challenges and lessons to learn. It has made me a better leader and a more understanding colleague. But the most profound change was internal. I carried with me an unshakable certainty that death is not the end, but just a transition. This not only eliminated my fear of death, but gave me a new appreciation for life. Every moment has become precious, an opportunity to grow, love, and make a difference. I remembered the angel's words about my mission. I began looking for ways to share what I had learned, not in a preachy or dogmatic way, but through actions and examples. I began volunteering at a local hospice, comforting those close to death and their families. I shared with them the peace and love I had experienced, helping them to see death not as a terrible end, but as a beautiful transition. I also started writing about my experience. At first, they were just personal notes, an attempt to make sense of what had happened. But I soon realized that these words could help other people. I started sharing my story on blogs and online support groups for people who had been through similar experiences. The response was surprising. I received messages from people all over the world who were touched and inspired by my story. Some shared their own near-death experiences, others talked about how my words helped them deal with grief or fear of death. Meanwhile, my dreams remained vivid and meaningful. Sometimes I dreamed about my father, the wise old man, or the angel. These dreams always brought messages of guidance and comfort. As the months passed, I felt like I was fulfilling the mission I was given. I was helping people see beyond the veil of physical reality, to understand that we are all part of something much bigger. I was spreading love and understanding, one heart at a time, and yet, I knew there was more to come. The angel's words about August 2024 echoed in my mind. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I was ready for whatever the universe had in store for me. As we approached August 2024, I began to feel a growing sense of anticipation. The angel's words about this particular month constantly echoed in my mind. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I was sure something significant was about to happen. I decided to prepare myself the best I could. I intensified my spiritual practices, meditation, prayer, study of sacred texts from various traditions. I felt like I needed to be as centered and aligned as possible for whatever was coming next. Sophia, who had become my partner not only in life but also on this spiritual journey, supported me every step of the way. Together, we created a sacred space in our home, a small room dedicated to reflection and spiritual connection. There, we spent hours talking about what could happen, sharing our hopes and fears. Our son, still small, seemed to sense that something was in the air. Sometimes I caught him looking up at the sky with an expression of curiosity and expectation that went beyond his few years. It made me wonder if children, in their innocence, were no longer in tune with the subtle energies of the universe. At work, I started organizing things so that I would have more flexibility in August. I didn't know if I would need time off, but I wanted to be prepared. I explained the situation to my superiors as best I could without going into detail about my near-death experience. To my surprise, they were understanding and gave me the flexibility I needed. As the date approached, I started to notice small changes around me. The air seemed more charged with energy. The colors seemed more vivid. Sometimes I felt like I saw flashes of light in the corner of my eye, as if the veil between the worlds was getting thinner. My dreams became more intense and frequent. I would often wake up feeling like I had received important messages, even though I couldn't always remember the details. In a particularly vivid dream, I saw the angel again. He didn't say anything, just smiled and pointed to a calendar showing the month of August. I began to feel an urgency to share my story and the lessons I had learned more widely. I accepted invitations to speak at spiritual study groups and even at some local churches. I always emphasized the message of universal love and interconnectedness that I had brought from my experience. As people heard my story, many began to share their own mystical or spiritual experiences. I realized that there were many more people than I realized who had seen glimpses of the afterlife, or who felt that something significant was about to happen. At the end of July, I had another powerful dream. In it, I saw the Earth seen from space. She was enveloped in a golden light that gently pulsed. Suddenly, the light intensified as if the entire planet was waking up. I woke up with a sense of urgency and expectation. In the last few days before August, Sophia and I decided to have a small ceremony in our sacred space. We light candles, burn sage to clear the energy, and meditate together. We asked for guidance and protection for whatever was to come. On the night of July 31st, as I was getting ready for bed, I looked out the window at the starry sky. A shooting star crossed the sky, leaving a bright trail. I smiled, feeling like it was a sign, a confirmation that we were on the right path. I lay down next to Sophia, my heart full of love and gratitude. I didn't know what August would bring, but I was ready. I knew that no matter what happened, we had each other, and we were sure that we were part of something much bigger than ourselves. As I fell asleep, I felt a deep peace wash over me. Tomorrow would bring the beginning of August, and with it, the beginning of something new and transformative. I was ready to embrace whatever the universe had in store for us. Here we are, at the beginning of August 2024. The month the angel mentioned has finally arrived, and the sense of anticipation is almost palpable. Each morning, I wake up with a mix of excitement and apprehension, wondering if this will be the day something extraordinary happens. The world around me seems to be in a state of contained waiting. The news tells of strange events happening in various parts of the globe, unexplained atmospheric phenomena, unusual behavior in animals, even reports of mass spiritual experiences. It's as if the entire planet is holding its breath, waiting for something monumental. At home, Sophia and I try to maintain a normal routine for our son's sake, but it's hard to ignore the electric energy in the air. Sometimes I catch Sophia looking out the window with a distant expression, as if she's trying to catch some invisible signal. Our son has been talking about vivid dreams of bright lights and gentle beings. His drawings are full of colorful spirals and shapes reminiscent of those I saw during my near-death experience. At work, I notice that people are more introspective, more prone to deep conversations about the meaning of life. It's as if everyone is feeling, even if unconsciously, that we are on the verge of a huge change. My own dreams and meditations became more intense. Sometimes I have flashes of visions, images of a transformed earth, of people awakening to a new reality. I don't know exactly what they mean, but I feel like they're glimpses of what's to come. One night I had a particularly vivid dream. In it, I saw the shining door that the angel showed me during my near-death experience. This time, however, the door was not in a distant spiritual realm, but right here on Earth. I saw people from all over the world approaching her, their faces lit up with wonder and hope. When I woke up, I felt a deep certainty that a great revelation was about to happen. Over the past few days, I have felt an urgent need to share my story with more people. I started doing lives on social media, talking about my experience and the importance of love and compassion. To my surprise, thousands of people from all over the world have tuned in, sharing their own stories and expressing a similar sense that something important is about to happen. Last night, as I meditated in our sacred space, I felt an overwhelming sense of divine presence. It was as if the veil between the worlds had become thinner than ever. I felt a wave of unconditional love wash over me, so powerful that tears ran down my face. When I opened my eyes, I saw that Sophia, who was meditating with me, was also crying. We didn't need to say anything. We both knew we had experienced something profoundly transformative. Now, as I sit here on this early August morning, I look out the window and wonder what the next few days will bring. The sky seems bluer than ever, the trees greener, as if nature itself is preparing for something great. I don't know exactly what will happen. Perhaps it will be a global event that will change the consciousness of humanity. Perhaps it will be a series of small miracles that together will create a wave of transformation. Or maybe it's something completely unexpected, something none of us could have predicted. Whatever it is, I feel like I'm ready. My near-death experience taught me that there is nothing to fear, that we are all part of something much larger, united by a love that transcends time and space. As I prepare to face this day and the days to come, I feel a mix of emotions: excitement, anticipation, a little nervousness, but most of all, a deep sense of peace and acceptance. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm not alone on this journey. I have Sophia, our son, and the certainty that we are all part of a big cosmic family. Whatever August 2024 brings, I am ready to embrace it with an open heart. And so, with the sun rising on a new day, I rise to face the unknown. My heart is full of love, my mind open to infinite possibilities. The world is on the brink of great change, and I'm grateful to be here to witness it. Let whatever comes come. We are ready. We are open. We are waiting with hearts full of love and hope for the extraordinary things to come. So, What did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified with each new video. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.